Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fully Booked, the Hidden Gems author podcast, in which Craig Touch and myself, Roland Hume, get to chat to some interesting figures and leading lights in this crazy industry we're in of writing and self-publishing. And today we are delighted to have a very special guest. She is Lisa Shaughnessy, who is a writing retreat evangelist, here to talk about one of my most exciting topics about writing retreats. So Lisa, how are you doing today? We are delighted to have you.
Oh, doing great, Roland. Thanks for you and Craig for having me on. I'm just thrilled to be here talking with you guys.
Well, we are thrilled to have you as well. And of course, we wouldn't be here without the man himself, Craig Touch, the owner and founder of Hidden Gems and an author himself. How are you doing today, Craig?
Doing great. Thanks, Roland. Thanks for joining us, Lisa. I know that, we've talked I think pretty briefly about writing retreat. I remember we talked about it sort of as part of a different podcast at one point. But, I don't think we went really into depth on the whole idea of writing retreats and why writers do them and what they get out of them. And, you are the perfect person to talk to us about this because, you're not just somebody who runs a specific writing retreat and can only talk about that. You actually have these, seminar things where you talk to people that run writing retreats, and you host an entire directory of writing retreats, so you know about all the writing retreats, right? So you can talk about them in general, and we can point people towards your directory so that they can get an idea of where they are, what they are, what the requirements are, all that stuff. But in general, why don't you start off by telling us, how you got sort of involved in all of this, how you became a writing retreat evangelist and started running, your seminars and creating your directory.
Sure. So I'm a writer myself. So as most businesses start, it's with some kind of need that people find, right, in their own life, in their own business, and what they need isn't available. So I had been running my own business for years. I was helping people do process management as well as helping them do CRM and follow-up stuff for a long time. And then I got burnt out, and I had been doing family history genealogy for 20 years. And I had found some really cool, what I thought were cool family stories within, kind of that broader, all the people. I narrowed it down to a couple. So I started writing them. I started writing them as creative nonfiction. So trying to fill in the gaps and make them more of an interesting story rather than just a series of facts. And around 2019, summer 2019, fall, I realized I needed more. I needed more help bringing all this information together. Was I doing it in the right order? Was I, the inciting incident? Did I have one? What was I doing? I had no idea. I was just writing stuff without really understanding how to craft a really good story that people would want to read. So I started looking at seminars and online courses and all those things. I even had a book coach at one time, and creative nonfiction. I don't think it's available anymore, but there was a creative nonfiction website that offered courses, and it really helped me a lot. But I still needed more. I kind of wanted an in-depth experience. I wanted somebody there that I could just kind of pick their brain like in the moment. And also I wanted to get around other writers. I wanted to, it's a lonely endeavor. We're all behind our computers, and sure, there's Facebook groups and all the things, but I really wanted to connect with other writers. So I started looking for a writing retreat, and it was weird because you would think there would have been like a one-stop place to find writing retreats, but there was all these blog posts that had the 20 best writing retreats of 2020 or the 5,000 best retreats, and I'm thinking, are you serious? Like, I'm gonna have to dig through all of these to find one that I wanted. And I kind of started because I'm a spreadsheet person, I'm a process person, so I dug out my spreadsheets, started copy pasting. And it was ridiculous. It was so frustrating because I still couldn't really compare them. So I finally did find a writing retreat that I wanted to go to. But unfortunately, the world shut down, right? March 2020. So all my plans just, went to heck there. And but I still realized there was a need for a writing retreat directory. I still wanted a place I could go and just quickly filter. I wanted an Amazon type thing, right? I'm going to check, filter. This is what I want. This is what I need. And it was going to pop out all the writing retreats that were good for me. So that didn't exist. And I thought, well, I'm a business person. I'm just going to create one. And it took a while. It actually just went live. So I started the idea in March 2020. It just went live in July of this year. I found a great developer, but websites, it's back and forth trying to figure out things. We all got sick with COVID at one time or another. So, just all the delays. But yeah, that's how I came to be doing what I'm doing.
That's great. I mean, I love, because that's sort of how and why I started Hidden Gems. It was sort of like filling the need, with originally with ARCs, and there wasn't a great way to do it, and so I had the same. It's funny. I had the same kind of business background. Mine was more in development, but it was in CRM software, so I have that sort of same background. So, when I think of writing retreats, and maybe this is a narrow view or wrong, or maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I think of it as where, a writer goes to sort of like be alone, like they go to this big house in the forest or something, and so for the solitude to write. But it sounds like, the ones that you're talking about, it's like more of where writers can get together and be together. Is that two different things, or is that different flavors of the same thing? I'm not sure.
To be alone together.
To be alone together, exactly. We're going to do this together separately. It's actually two flavors of the same thing. So there are people who will go off by themselves, rent a cabin in the woods, a beach house, whatever, or even just an Airbnb, in their same town, just to get away. So they want that solitude. I need to just dig in and be by myself and write. But the writing retreats that I'm talking about that I really like are a combination of the alone time and the group setting. So you get to meet other writers and be with other writers and bounce ideas off them, because honestly, they're the only other people who understand us, right? Like our spouses, our kids, or whatever, significant others, they nod their head politely. Oh, okay, so your character is not, I thought it was doing this. Now it's not doing that. They can't keep up. But when we talk with other writers, they get it, they understand, and they can help us. They can say from their own personal experience what they've done in certain situations. How did you handle, when you had a plot hole as big as the Grand Canyon, like, how did you fix that? But the best writing retreats give you that alone time as well. They give you space for free writing time. They carve out, they'll pick venues that have little nooks and or really nice places that people can go off and write by themselves. So they're not overly crowded, and there's enough space within the venue that people can have that alone and writing time. And then when they're ready to come together, they have group activities, or just lunch, dinner, that kind of thing, that they can talk with each other about what they're writing.
So these are kind of hosted by whoever owns the venue, I guess, and they put it together. And
not sometimes, but usually it's the writing retreat hosts that I come across the most are usually book coaches or editors. So they're already helping writers in some capacity, improve their writing or improve their book, or help them, through the agent and publishing process. But they do that like maybe individually or group coaching, and now they want to bring all those people together in a retreat. So a lot of hosts, and not exclusively, but a lot of hosts already have some kind of business in the writing world, and now they're just expanding that and bringing people together.
So they typically have an existing relationship with all of those authors, like as an agent or a coach, and then you say, hey, let's all get together on this day at this place. And
yeah, or they'll put it out there. Like it could be some some people, like, they'll have a following, like they'll have Instagram, Facebook. So it's not necessarily that they pick and choose the people to come with them. They just throw it out to their audience. Hey, I am hosting a writing retreat, this day and time at this place. And they'll put it up either on like Eventbrite or on their website, or, or the writing retreat directory so people can find it. And they'll, a lot of times if they have a really big following, they fill up like no problem. But it's hard, right? It's hard to get away on the specific day. So people have to plan. So even if you have a huge following, or you have people who want to come to your writing retreat, you may not fill it as quickly as you want because, people time and budget constraints. But it's like any other event, they'll advertise it out and hope that people sign up for it.
Well, what is it that makes people sign up then? What is a good writing retreat in your estimation?
It is one that gives people the experience of just being able to write on their own. It's you don't want to cram too much into it. So a lot of times people will have optional excursions or special guests or workshops or, any number of activities they feel like they have to fill up the writer's time. But the best ones give them maybe some guidance, some one-on-one critiques. Maybe you get, one-on-one with the host, who, if she's a book coach or if she's brought somebody in to help with that. But you also give the writer that space and time to just be and think, because we're so busy running around. Even if you have 10 minutes, 5 minutes to write, it takes a good 10, 15, 20 minutes just to get back into that groove. I mean, I know it does for me. You're like, okay, what were they doing? Where was I at? And you just have to get back into the whole character and the mood and the setting. So I would say the best ones give your writers plenty of time to just think and write.
Are they trying to get authors together that write in the same genre or have the same sort of, I don't know, goals or how do they sort of make the group, or is it just any writer who wants to come, who's part of my Instagram following, come on down?
Well, the great thing about writing retreats is it's any of those. So some are women only. I've actually seen some that are men only. Some are for mystery writers or poets, or writing retreat, or that just went up on the directory earlier this week, is for screenwriters. Somebody has one for people who surf, if you want to surf and write. I don't think at the same time, but and some are open to all. Some say, you know what, if you're a writer, come to my retreat, just come and write. So as many types of writers as there is a writing retreat, I promise, out there for them. It's one was on a train, so I think it was from Oregon to Canada. So there's a writing retreat. I know, right? Like, I'm coming across just these amazing and different writing retreats. It's kind of fun to see what people are doing. So it's not a stodgy, we're all going to sit around and stare at each other and maybe write a few things. People go to amazing locations and all over the world. And yeah, literally, if you're looking for a writing retreat, there is one for you.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the benefit to a lot of these kind of things is having sort of that experience as well, which is always something that writers want to do, is have experiences so that they can write about them. And so if you go on a train, maybe that helps you write about being on a train and having that experience if you've never done it, right? If you're writing Mystery on the Orient Express 2, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I guess, the other benefit is that it sounds like it's a tax write-off.
Oh, I would imagine, right? If you're a writer, yeah, definitely. You know what? I honestly hadn't thought about that. I don't know why. But
I mean, it's
yes.
Absolutely. It's, it's a writing retreat. So
right. Yeah, because you can write off courses, you can write off, any expenses for your writing. So yeah.
There you go. There's an angle for your directory. Come on these fabulous getaways and write it off.
But then you have to make sure it's set on a train.
But your point, Craig, about the experiences that is another huge benefit of a writing retreat, is that you are just out of your normal environment. Even if you're just sitting somewhere, you're looking at things differently. You're looking at whole different scenery, even if it's as mundane as a grove of trees or something. And your brain has to think. When we're going through our day-to-day world, half the time we don't think, right? Sometimes you get in your car, you end up at the store, you have no idea how you got there. It's like, oh, I must have been spaced out during that drive to the store. But when you're in a new environment, you have to pay attention because you don't know what's there, what's around the corner, or what's around you. You have to be aware, which makes you really think and get into the moment more, which can spark your creativity.
I imagine having time scheduled to write as well is a great thing. I find my biggest thing is, unless you schedule time to write, you don't write because people are always interrupting you. So
yeah, that's a huge thing, because like I said before, you can just immerse yourself in the writing and you don't have to worry about somebody like, oh, is dinner ready? Oh, I got to pick up the kids, or a work call or something. You can literally just put yourself into that whole writing mode. And yeah, people have said they've gotten months worth of writing done in a week because they could just go right through, because you don't have to keep coming back and reorienting yourself to the story, right? Every time you do that, that takes time. So you can just stay in the moment, stay in the story, remember all your characters and just go with it.
Yeah, so less distractions, more inspiration, which I imagine can also help with writer's block. That whole idea of taking yourself out of your regular mundane life, which is probably what's keeping you sometimes from having new ideas that and able to sort of push through sometimes when you're blocked. If you're off in the forest or on a train or wherever, that can completely spark ideas that you never would have had sitting in your office where you spend most of your days.
Right. Just watching people walk by, like different people walking by, you're in a lobby or you're at a local cafe or something, like it's just, you're going to get so many more ideas. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of the really, interesting ones that you have? I mean, the train and surfing sound great, but on your website and your directory, what are things that, that typically, I imagine most of them are not like that. Like they're probably, at a place, like a standard place, right?
yeah, most of them. But most retreat hosts try to find very cool places. So there's a castle in France, an old monastery in Spain, which is in the heart of Toledo, and Greece. There's two in Greece, which I thought was interesting, and Iceland. So the Iceland one they do in Reykjavik is kind of interesting because they also do a reader's retreat along with it. So people wanted to go on the writer's retreat that weren't writers. So the host said, oh, well, why don't we just do a reader's retreat so people can kind of tag along, or people can bring a spouse or, a significant other or something, because they have some really cool tours that they take their guests on. So that was very popular. One that isn't on the writing retreat directory, but is very cool, is they are going down the Nile, and it's a crime writing retreat, and they're going to do it on a boat down the Nile River, so in Egypt, right? So
didn't Agatha Christie write a novel about that?
Yeah. I think it's they're doing, I think, kind of a, I don't know, not a knockoff of it, but it's like a retro thing for that. I think they're calling it the Candlestick in the Pyramid or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I just have a couple in Canada. There's one in an old church. Is that one in Ontario? There's so many they mix. There's one in an old church that looked really cool in Canada, and they have, each of the rooms are themed, an author themed room. So I don't remember what the authors are, but it looked very cool, and just filled with books and everything. So I think what writing retreat hosts, most of them are not looking for a standard Holiday Inn or hotel or or something. They're looking for unique venues. There's another one in Canada where they're going to take people to a local printing press that's been in operation since the 1800s. So they have all the old machinery and things. But yeah, there's one on Martha's Vineyard, which just looked amazing in general, whether it's nothing fancy, but Martha's Vineyard, the setting and stuff with, you're surrounded by the water. That one looked very cool too.
Wow, that is amazing.
Right,
I
want to go.
So, and that totally explains why, non-writers want to come to these things too. I mean,
right.
I can imagine saying to, your significant other, I'm writing, leave me alone, I'm writing. You know what? I'm just going to go to Martha's Vineyard.
Right.
Yeah, sure. And they'll be like, yeah, uh-huh.
But I can write it off.
Yeah.
Once you tell them that, they'll be fine with it.
Sure. They'll be fine being left alone with the kids. Okay, so then, they're going to all these fabulous places. I imagine the costs of a lot of these is somewhat out of this world as well, or is it, do they try to keep it sort of reasonable?
Yeah, they do try to keep it reasonable. And I mean, I've seen ones from as low as $500 per person up to, $3,000 per person. A lot of people even have local ones. So there was a retreat. He was on one of my sampler events. He doesn't have a retreat right now, but he lives in St. Charles, Missouri, and he found this historic, cool old house in St. Charles, and he did his retreat there. So the cost was less because he just had to rent the house, and then people just had to get their transportation there, and he provided all the meals. So that varies as well. The type of venue, a lot of people do rent houses. There's one in North Carolina that's happening in November, and she just rented a huge house on the beach that I think every room has a king size bed or something. It just looked amazing. But it just depends on the retreat. And again, as many types of writers as there are to find a retreat for, whatever your budget and time is, you'll find one for that too. People are doing them locally. They're doing them in Estonia. So one of them on their directory is in Estonia. But if they get good deals, like some people have really good relationships with the local people or with the local venue, and they can get discount rates. So don't think, if you see something, you're like, oh my gosh, that's so expensive. That's not necessarily going to be every retreat you find. You can find a retreat within your budget. Even if you drive to it, there's retreats all over. I know I'm talking mostly about the US, but even the UK, Spain, France, and it could be possible to get there even cheaper than, you don't necessarily have to fly to get to a retreat that's close to you.
Well, I imagine the prices of the retreats don't include sort of the getting to the retreat, right? Because they don't know where you're coming from.
Right,
but, so that means it's always going to be local to somebody, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
And a lot of them provide transportation. I mean, I know that's like a small amount of money compared to the whole thing, but sometimes they'll provide transportation from the local train or airport too. So,
right.
Yeah, everybody just has their own like amenities or what they offer for it.
So on your directory, you were saying, when you were creating it, that you wanted the ability to search for retreats based on various criteria. So I imagine you've built that in, or you are building that into your directory, so writers can search by, I imagine date is one of them, and location maybe, but is there other factors?
So I have genres and categories. And so when you first go, there's a map, so you can zoom in, and if you know kind of a location of where you want to go, you can just click one of the markers on the map and it can take you to it. But yeah, so we have a search bar. So if you have any search term that you want to put in there, you can put that in, and we do have it by date. And just the way that software was, I couldn't do genre and category like a separate thing. So I just threw them all into, categories. So that will cover genres. And then anything like if people offer scholarships, or if it's, women only, or, BIPOC or LGBTQ, you know what I mean? Can you edit that out? That didn't really sound very
I know. I think it sounds fine because if you're somebody who writes LGBTQ plus fiction, you want to be around other people who also write that fiction.
Yeah. Just the way I phrased it, I messed up the letters. But anyway,
you're cancelled.
But yeah, so any kind of thing that you want, there's a drop-down menu, and you can select as many as you want. So it's not just select one. You can, hold down the control or command key and select as many options as you want, and have it pop up with everything that fits that criteria.
And are a lot of these ones that run more than once, or are a lot of them sort of a one-time only retreat?
Yeah, there's a mix of that too. Some people have been running the same retreat for like 20 years. Yeah, but some are just, maybe they did one and they're like, oh, that was a lot of work. I don't think I'm going to do that again.
Yeah, I was wondering about sort of like the idea of, whether people leave reviews about the retreat. I mean, if it's a one-time only one, then I guess it's less important than if it was one that was running every year for 20 years. People would want to know sort of what other people thought about the retreat and how well it was run and all that.
Right, but a lot of these retreat hosts are book coaches or editors or some other business in the writing world. So if they have a retreat, even if they only have one, and they get good testimonials from that, speaking to their ability to help somebody complete their book or give them good advice or something like that, then they could use that for their business. So I would hope that even if somebody only does one retreat, that they do get testimonials, because that can help you in other aspects of your business.
But there's nothing on your site that have like reviews of the specific ones.
No. I did think of that in the beginning, but I just did not want to be responsible. I'll be honest. I did not want to be responsible for that. Cleaning up reviews or policing them, or
right.
I want a really nice, kind, very nice site where everybody's just kind and helping each other.
So the directory sends people to the site for the retreat, I guess, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Then it gets built based on submissions from the people that run them or the people that have heard about them. Is that how it works? Right.
So I have 3 plans. I offer a 3-month free trial for now because it's just started. So in the beta testing, I didn't want to, I wanted to give people a longer runway to try it out. That will go down to a 1-month free trial probably in October. And then I offer a middle tier, which people can either do for 6 months or month to month. And then a higher tier is a 12-month commitment, because in each of those tiers, I don't just have people list their retreats. I treat it as a partnership and a collaboration. So I post on social media and in my newsletter. I post the links to it. I shout them out. I give them extra a boost, so that they're not just listing it on the directory. They're also getting somebody to help amplify that message for them.
So the people that want to post the retreat, they have to pay, but the people that actually, like the writers who are looking for a retreat, it's free to use. Is that right?
Oh yes, yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, like everyone's gotta make a living somehow, right? So these people are making money on the retreats, so it's absolutely helpful to them to have one place for everybody to go. Otherwise, how would you even find them without something like this?
Right. And there is another site that has a lot of retreats. They have a few writing retreats, but they're mostly for yoga and other spiritual health and wellness retreats. And they have like a fee, like a commission. I think it's free to post, but then if somebody purchases a seat in their retreat, then the retreat host pays a percentage of that back to the website. And I didn't want to get into that. I have a flat fee because I have unlimited writing retreats. So you can host as many writing retreats or list as many writing retreats as you want on there. And I didn't want it to be like, I don't know, just nickel and diming. I wanted people to know their cost up front And so I just thought a flat fee where people could just, have that knowing their costs and not having to worry about every time somebody purchased a slot in their retreat that they'd have to worry about like paying the percentage. So I don't have that. It's just a flat fee for all of the options.
Sounds like a good idea. So I guess you haven't personally tried a lot of these. I'm sure you want to.
I do.
It would probably be very difficult for you to go on really hardly any of these. I mean, you could probably do one or two, but really, how many could you actually go on? But I imagine you have tried some of them, right?
I have not. Okay, so believe it or not, here's the crazy thing. I have actually not been able to get on a writing retreat yet. Because once I know, right? Because once I started doing the business side, it just took off. It just took over, and also it's kind of a thing about I don't know which one to go to now. Like I can see the positives on so many, and some look cool. So Martha's Vineyard is very close. Well, not very close to me, but within an hour plane ride, because I'm on the East Coast in the U.S. But I haven't decided which one I want to go to yet. So it's been,
And now, if you pick one now, it'll kind of be like favoritism, right?
Right. I won't be able to tell anybody.
Ours is the one she actually came to.
Yeah, I'll go incognito and
So how many are listed on there, and how many get added sort of on a regular basis?
I think right now I have 13 or 14 up there. And averaging about one a week. I'm still reaching out to people. The best part has been the couple of people who have just found it and signed up. So it's getting out there somehow. I'm as active as I can be on Instagram. That's the one place I'm most active on social media. And I have my newsletter. But yeah, so average right now once a week. And now I'm going to actually be starting a podcast. So I'll be doing the push to get guests on the podcast as well as, get them over to the directory. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll start seeing maybe 2, 3, 4, 20, I don't know, a week.
The podcast is separate than the thing that you were running. There's 2 more left. What was that? Let's talk about that for a minute. Because I know originally, you talked to me about the thing you were running where people would come on to talk about it. And there's 2 more of those left from when this episode airs. So, by the time people see it, there might be a couple more, but at that point it'll be done. But is that the same thing as the podcast, or is that a different thing?
Sort of. It's an evolution. The podcast is an evolution from that. So that was a twice monthly live event, webinar type thing, where I would have writing retreat hosts come on and talk about their writing retreat. And it was presentation, so slide presentation, so people could see the pictures, they could see, get a feel, like a really good feel for what the writing retreat was all about. And I would also have the writing retreat hosts talk about the benefits of a writing retreat, what to bring to a writing retreat and how to stay motivated after they've gone home and, life gets back in the way. So those were video live, and now I'm going to segue into similar, but with the podcast, I want it to be like a true community of the writing retreat. In fact, I'm calling it your writing retreat connection, because I'm going to interview writing retreat hosts, writers who have had really good experiences at writing retreats, because I want more writers to understand the benefits like directly from people, not just from the writing retreat host saying, yeah, come to my retreat, it's awesome. So I want people to hear real world experiences. And then I'm also going to interview owners of venues, because I want writing retreat hosts to get a feel for the different types of venues that are available, because that is one of the biggest issues they have with creating their retreat or planning their retreat is, where do I host it? Like, how do I find a place to host it? And then I'm also going to do solo episodes where I talk about how to plan and host a writing retreat. So it's more like a holistic, like our writing retreat connection. So so I'm going to come at it from all angles to help everybody. Like I said, I'm going to get the writing retreat into the consciousness of every writer in the world. I'm just going to do it.
I think so. So how do you go around vetting these things? You have these sites there. I mean, how do you figure out whether somebody's writing retreat is legit or not?
Well, I'm pretty trusting, I guess, because I never thought about that. But I have it doesn't occur to me that somebody's gonna like shadily just put
it's like
I doubt they would.
They're gonna bring you there to murder you, and it'll be a whole big
no.
lot of
I will
crime
tell you,
there.
I don't, but I do have disclaimers that I'm not responsible for, the accuracy of the information but I do look at everybody. So anybody who does put their writing retreat up, I look at who they are. I do look at their writing retreat. So far, like I said, it's been people who I have either known or once I've looked at them, I can see they have a legitimate, social media following, and their website is an actual writing retreat. They have credentials, they're writers or authors or book coaches or things. So I do a fair amount of like post vetting, but not up front. But now you've made me think.
Well, I mean, you just obviously as it grows, you'd probably want to make sure that nobody's going on there and just, setting up a site and saying, hey, sign up, and then people come and then they just take the
I don't see the benefit of doing that.
Yeah,
I don't see the end game of like, let me set up a fake writing retreat. That's going to be a moneymaker.
I will just say I wouldn't put it past somebody to do something crazy.
Sure,
right?
but I think that when people are looking to run scams, they're probably looking for something that is like a bigger thing, more fish in the barrel than a few writers looking to go on a retreat. So but that goes to also the idea I was asking about in terms of reviews. It's more to me about whether somebody's setting up a writing retreat and they've never done one before, maybe it's not as good. But if it depends on what your goals are too. If really you're just going to get away and talk to some other writers. But what happens if that's your goal, but you're, say, the only writer that shows up or signs up, right? Is there do a lot of these have, we have to get a certain amount of people, otherwise it's canceled kind of disclaimers?
Yeah, quite a few of them do. Anybody who I would imagine who's just renting a house, they don't have that the constraint, although it wouldn't be good for them. They'd have to pay the full ride for the house, right? So I would imagine that anybody in that situation probably has a minimum, or if we don't get this many people by this date, we will have to postpone it or reschedule. But anybody going to a venue that does have a minimum, then they'll have to build that in. And to your point about, a new writing retreat or people not really sure about them, like I would hope anybody who's giving somebody, hundreds of thousands of dollars would do vetting, talk to, look at their website, and most of them, almost all of them, do have some kind of testimonial. Even if they haven't done a retreat before, they have a testimonial about their services, why they're a good book coach or editor, or how they can help you. So yes, definitely do your research and vetting before you go on a retreat, because again, you're going someplace with strangers. You don't necessarily know these people unless you've gone before. And a lot of writing retreat hosts, which I really like, they get people together ahead of time. So they'll do Zoom calls, or they'll do a Facebook group. They'll do, get people together so they can kind of meet face to face virtually before they all get together at the retreat. So most of the writing retreat hosts do something to make sure everybody's comfortable and kind of gets to know each other ahead of time.
I think that's great, because I think typically, obviously it's not the rule, but a lot of writers are introverts. And so having everyone show up and be like, hey, here's a bunch of people that you've never met. Let's all chat and spend the week together. That might not be super comfortable for every writer. So I think getting to know them beforehand a little bit would probably ease the mind of a lot of those types of writers. I think, it would, because writing is a very solitary retreat, and that can be a downside, but to many it's a plus, right? They kind of like being alone, but but to your point, there's a lot of benefit to going out and changing your venue and talking to other writers, and so you have to make it sort of a comfortable experience for them.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
And some people have come out of it as lifelong friends or have formed writing groups out of it. And, even some hosts have told me that people they didn't even think, like on paper, you would never think would be friends, bonded over whatever they were writing or their experience there, and became friends, critique partners, accountability partners, part of a writing group. So the benefit isn't necessarily just there while you're at the retreat, but it's also after the retreat. It's being connected to more people who can help you. A lot of times the writing retreat hosts, if they're coaches or editors or something, they'll continue on. They'll give you like a couple of months of follow-on critique or help or something. So it all depends. Like everybody does it a little differently, but most of them don't just drop you like, okay, thanks for coming, bye. They have some kind of sort of off ramp to help you after you get home from the retreat as well.
How long are these retreats? Are they like usually on a weekend, or is it during the week? How a few days?
It typically 3 to 5 days. That's like what I see as the average. Some are 2 weeks. I don't know if I could do that for 2 weeks, but and some who have the 2 weeks, they'll have them broken up into 1 week options. Like you can do week 1 or week 2, or you can do weeks 1 through 2. But most of them I see are up to like 5 days, full days, because you don't want to give people, for one thing, if you're paying money to fly out there, you don't want to spend like couple $1,000 on airfare only to spend like 2 days there. So plus just getting in the groove, right? Or traveling, like you need like a day or two to kind of get used to your environment. So it's good to have like, I would say 3 days minimum, but definitely 5 to 7 days is kind of a sweet spot where you can give people everything they need in the amount of time and not overwhelm them or not, not for it to be too long.
Wow. That is, I mean, I don't know. I guess I never really thought about that. I think I was thinking that it was usually just a weekend, but it does make sense. I know a lot of people, when they travel, they often say, I need a day or two to sort of like get on the time zone or to sort of get into the vacation mode. Not that it's necessarily a vacation, but so yeah, that makes sense, especially if you're doing something where you're going to a destination that is almost like an excursion-y type thing. You're going to a monastery. You're going to want to spend some of that time exploring the grounds or whatever it is that you're doing. If you're surfing and writing, you can't do both at the same time, I'm pretty sure. So you need to separate that out and have time for both. Yeah, makes sense.
Well, that is. Unfortunately, we're coming up to the top of the hour, but what a fascinating... I want to go on one of these writing retreats. It sounds so exciting and fun to be... I would organize one, to be honest. There are all these houses up in upstate New York that would just be perfect. The big 10-bedroom old 1830s farmhouse, get a bunch of writers together, have these wonderful meals in the evening.
I was thinking you'd do more of a pub crawl experience.
Might not be best for the writing part of it, but
or it might really be good for the writing.
Yeah, come on.
Who knows?
A lot of famous writers were alcoholics, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Got that part nailed.
You'd be helping them.
Oh, well, Lisa, it has been such a pleasure listening to you. Where can people find out about all this?
Well, writingretreatdirectory.com is my main website. I'm also active on Instagram at Writing Retreat Directory. And if anybody wants to see the Writing Retreat sampler episodes where I've interviewed Writing Retreat hosts about their retreats, that's at writingretreatsampler.com.
Brilliant. And we'll put obviously links down below that people can click on. Oh, Lisa, this has been such a wonderful discussion. Craig, do you have any final questions before we wrap things up?
No, I mean, like you, I'm thinking I should try to justify going on a writing retreat. I might have to check out the directory and see what I can swing. But yeah, no, this was fascinating. It's really more to it than I had thought. I really, in my head, kind of thought that most writing retreats were solitary. You go off to a quiet place and sit and reflect and write. But they sound far more interesting than that. So I'm glad that you're able to come out and talk to us about it today. Thank you.
No, thanks for having me. And that's part of my goal, right? To get people to understand more about what they are. But thank you, Craig and Roland. I really appreciate you having me, and I look forward to staying in touch with you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, if you have enjoyed what Lisa had to say, make sure you leave a comment down below, hit that like button, give her some love, because this has been a great conversation. And of course, we'll be back next week with another episode of Fully Booked. So until then, stay tuned. Thank you very much.